Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhale frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great. Just not cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokets and non-toking lovers of liberty. It's 4:02 in the Pacific time zone. Time for Toker Talk Radio. And yes, thank you, chat room. I'm watching my blood pressure. Fortunately, I have a herbal relaxant, courtesy of the CO2 company. Love the CO2 company here in Oregon. Great vapor pen refill cartridges here. This one's a blackberry kush. It's very tasty. Gotta like that. So if you just caught the radical rant, you can tell I'm pretty pissed off about these local taxes. That they're going to move forward and try to defend these. They're going to try to wrangle some amendment at the legislature. They're going to try to run something through to try to get local taxation of marijuana in complete contravention of what the people voted for. The measure couldn't be more clear. That what we were voting for replace and supersedes everything. That includes all city and municipal and, redundant there, municipal and county taxes. All of them. It was very clear. And the balls it takes Charlie Hales to try to defend this move for a 10% marijuana tax in a county that voted 71% for Measure 91 is inexcusable. Folks, there's still shenanigans going on. And, I had people all my career say, well, once you legalize, you're going to put yourself out of a job. Are you kidding me? This is where the work really begins. This is where the politics really happens, folks. These next few months, up until July 1st, 2015, are crucial in how we shape the marijuana industry in Oregon, how we shape the regulations, whether or not there'll be extreme zoning restrictions on where pot shops can be, or limits on how many pot shops, or what limits there are on purchases, or how many amounts, or by whom. Will it be tracked? Will it be registered? There's a lot of room for the state and the OLCC to regulate this, and we need to ensure that they don't play bureaucratic and legislative tricks to hamstring this legalization. Absurd limits or local taxes. So we'll be doing plenty of work, and part of that work includes on November, I believe it's the 19th, I will be attending a Tigard Turns the Tide anti-drug education meeting. If you remember the ads that I made with the little grandmotherly type woman who said it's easier for kids to get alcohol and tobacco, or it's easier for kids to get weed than it is to get alcohol and tobacco. You remember that commercial? That's Connie Raymakers from Tigard Turns the Tide. So I'm going to head out there with the camera and we'll see what we get. You can watch the stream live and I'll remind you a little later as this comes up. But yeah, trying to pass these punitive taxes against us, and the gall to claim that you're going to need it for the enforced cost of regulation. Really? As if there's that much cost of it. Okay, so we already have medical marijuana dispensaries in Portland. How much has it been costing to regulate those? Because that's what it's going to cost to regulate your pot shops in town. It's going to be the same amount of complaints or problems or things to deal with. This is just insane. The Legislative Review Office already estimated what it would cost for the regulations and that Measure 91's taxes more than cover it already. So it's all smoke and mirrors, pardon the pun. They just want to tax. They just, here's something we can tax. And that won't get voted down by the tax-hating Oregon voter. And we ain't going to let that stand. So my attention is fully fixated on the mayor's office. Now, in some good news. Let me go back to this just for a second before I get a couple of things more that I have to establish here. Scott Winkles is the lobbyist for the League of Oregon Cities and said most cities that implemented the taxes wanted to preserve local control and cover costs associated with legalization. Those costs are similar to those that accompany alcohol, he said, such as nuisance issues and intoxicated drivers. Quote, if somebody has a complaint, it's not going to be the state that takes those phone calls, end quote, Winkles said. All right. First of all, those costs are similar to those that accompany alcohol? Really? How many marijuana smokers do you got pissing in your lawn after a late night? How many marijuana smokers are getting into fights outside of the bars? How many marijuana smokers are running their cars off the road? Okay, even if the problems were equal, and that's a ludicrous statement, but even if the costs of alcohol and marijuana were equal, there are 1/6 the number of marijuana users as alcohol users. You cannot, with a straight face, make this case unless you're going to lobby for a 60% tax on beer. If the costs are equal and you need a 10% tax on marijuana smokers and there's 6 times more alcohol drinkers, then obviously you need a 60% tax on alcohol. You want to float that proposal by the McMenamin brothers? For those of you out of town, that's a local craft brew dynasty here in Oregon. Yeah, good luck on that one. Quit discriminating against us.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel?
The Russ Belville Show reminds you to never smoke and drive impaired. Hang out for a while. Share.
.420 Radio, your ticket to Seattle Hemp Fest.
Hey, what's up? This is Killer Mike, one half of Run the Jewels, and I'm telling you, November 23rd through 27th, you need to be at Cannabis Cup. I did it last year, and I got so high, I can tell you what color Jesus' furniture is. I got so high, I kissed the sky twice. I got so much enlightenment, I know Buddha's last name. Do you feel what I'm telling you right now? The people are great. You don't have to search or call your sketch-ass dealer who won't call you back. You don't have to go lurking through the hood to find good smoke. You need to get out of the country. You've been sitting on your block too long smoking weed. Get out and have an adventure. See you at Cannabis Cup, November 23rd through 27th. Yeah.
Hey, this is Willie Nelson for Normal. And I smoke pot and I like it a lot. I learned a long time ago that marijuana is a lot safer than alcohol. There's nothing wrong with the responsible use of marijuana by adults. It's time we stopped arresting and started respecting those who smoke marijuana responsibly. To learn what you can do to help, contact Normal at NORML.org or call toll-free 888-67-NORMAL.
So what's the difference from cloud and just a few stuff?
Question authority. Question abuse. Question abuse of my language. Use of my force. Coward. You have the right to remain silent, and if you speak, it will be used against you in a court of law. But there's a flaw. There's that law is all without the law. Force. Coerce. Force. Coward. Question.
Yeah, that's Question Abuse by Tree. Big thanks to Dave Tree out there in Boston for the rights to the music. We appreciate it. He's a cannabis warrior, ladies and gentlemen. He's a big fighter for what we're doing, and he believes in what we believe in. So thank you very much, Dave Tree, and all the great work that you Boston activists are doing out there. We're going to get this legal anytime soon. I anticipate Massachusetts could be on the line for 2016. It could happen, folks. We're going to make that happen. And thank you. Welcome back to the show. Working on a couple of formulas here because, you know, this Charlie Hales thing, this idea that we're going to tax marijuana at 10% here in Portland, despite the fact that the measure clearly says that we cannot tax at the local level, you can only tax at the state level, is just ridiculous. And we are going to fight this, I'm telling you. And they made a big mistake trying to attack us on this one. Let me tell you, one thing that is important to understand is that part of the reason behind this measure is to take out the black market. And what we've seen from what's going on in Washington State is that the black market still thrives because of overtaxation. And I would hope that our legislators would have learned that lesson from this state just north of us. I mean, it's so easy when you see marijuana dealers just sitting in the parking lots waiting for people to come buy marijuana, and then they realize what the cost of the marijuana is. They say, "Well, screw that, man. I'll just buy a bag from the guy outside." They need to understand that what we're trying to do is to undercut that market. And I've got this spreadsheet that I've been building, and I think this will kind of give an idea of what's going on when you can see it in the pure numbers here. And I'll magnify a little bit. Let's see if we can get that a little larger for everyone. Basically, what I've done here is I've created 3 columns, and our first column is our Measure 91 structure. And then next to it, we've got our medical marijuana structure. And then we got the Portland structure that is being proposed by the mayor and like a lot of these other cities. Okay. And let me get the 10%. That'll be the tax that they're proposing here. And we'll just make sure that that's added to the tax times B2 equals B2 plus B2 times the tax for you spreadsheet junkies out there. All right. So right now in Portland, and what was estimated by the Legislative Review Office is that an ounce of marijuana post Measure 91 would end up costing $140. Now, the tax under Measure 91 is $35 an ounce. And so a medical marijuana ounce you would expect would then come in at $105, right? If medical marijuana doesn't have to pay that $35 an ounce tax. Now, if we consider a person using 1 ounce of marijuana every month, and that's not an unrealistic number for someone like me, let's say that's a quarter a week, you could probably do that. So as we look at January 16 would be the first month that it would be possible to buy marijuana, it would cost me $140. If I was on the medical marijuana program, it would cost me $105. But in Portland, if you add a 10% tax to that, my marijuana is going to cost $154 an ounce. If we go down through every month at that $140 an ounce, my annual marijuana budget is $1,680. Under the medical marijuana program, my budget is $1,260. But of course, you have to add to the medical marijuana budget the fact that you got to pay $175 for a doctor and $200 to the state. That brings my total cost for the year up to $1,635. So for all the hassle of going to the doctor, filling out the paperwork, getting a card, and shopping at medical dispensaries, I'd save $45 for the year. Really, probably not worth my while to stay on the medical program. If I were on the medical program, I'd drop out. If I wasn't on the medical program, it's really not worth my while to try to get on it. But under Mayor Hale's proposed 10% tax, bringing that weed cost up to $154, now we're talking about $1,848 for my annual weed budget. I would save $213 a year getting on the medical program. Maybe that's a good idea for me. And another consideration would be the recreational savings if I left Portland and went and bought my marijuana somewhere else. That savings, of course, would be what Portland's cost is minus what the untaxed cost would be. I'd save $168 a year going somewhere outside of Portland that didn't pass a tax. But as we get to the marijuana users that consume more marijuana, even just a small amount more, like an ounce and a quarter, changes these numbers drastically. At an ounce and a quarter, $140 an ounce, I got to spend $175 a month. The medical would work out to $131, but under the Portland tax it would end up being $193. We come down to the bottom here. I would save myself $150 if I went the medical route, if I need that much marijuana, an ounce and a quarter a month. I'd save $360 if I went medical under the Portland tax. And I would save $210 leaving Portland and buying my marijuana somewhere that did not pass such a tax. If we get to the extreme use, 2 ounces of marijuana a month, I save $800 getting on the medical program. I save $336 buying outside of Portland. Mayor Hales, you need to understand that one of the things people like about shopping in Portland, Oregon is the fact that there's no sales taxes. Portland is going to be where everyone is flying in who wants to be a marijuana tourist, who wants to come into town and experience all the great things Portland does have to offer, as well as some great marijuana. There are unincorporated areas of Portland that are, they're not part of Portland, the city, but they are these little Multnomah County areas that don't fall under city jurisdiction. That would be a wonderful place to open up a pot shop that would escape the Portland City 10% tax and reap all those tourists flying in. And all the opportunities for the Oregon coast cities to be bud and breakfasts, to be vacation destinations. Those cities that didn't pass marijuana taxes will reap much more of the hotel taxes of the people choosing to stay there rather than stay where they get taxed extra for their marijuana. It's a knee-jerk reaction among our politicians to want to tax marijuana. Sin taxes are easy. They afford no political downside. It's easy to say you want to tax marijuana, but it is the wrong thing to do. You guys are all operating on this base assumption that more marijuana consumption amongst adults is a bad thing, and it is not. You're operating from this assumption that if marijuana prices were too low, everybody would smoke it, and that's not true. The people who are smoking marijuana are smoking marijuana. They may smoke more of it, some of them, but not generally speaking. And the only harm, let me amend that. The greatest harm of marijuana is what happens when it's priced too high. The desperate measures people will go to get it and control the market over it when it's priced too high. I know it seems counterintuitive to you people, but the solution to what you want to see out of marijuana policy, less children using it, less public damage from it, I know it seems counterintuitive, but the solution to that is the lowest priced marijuana possible. Trust me on this one. The lowest priced marijuana possible, where the market is in control of these things, the regulations that you put upon it can actually work.
That's just how white folks will do you.
I heard you there. And I got a feel for Barack Obama, man. In spite of everything, all of the obstruction from the Republican Congress, or the House, I should say, all the things he's done, getting people insured and reducing the debt, and reducing unemployment, raising the stock market, and those white Democrats running away from him. As Jon Stewart called them, the chicken shit brigade. Hey, we're back with Herb Thrasher right after this.
420 Radio, your ticket to Seattle Hemp Fest.
There's so much I worry about as a mom. Stephen Harper thinks that organized crime should continue to profit from marijuana prohibition. Imagine regulating marijuana like alcohol and cigarettes with a strong and clear educational message, making it more difficult for my kids and your kids to access. Drug dealers don't ask for ID. Stephen Harper does not have the kind of judgment we need to protect our children, authorized by the Normal Women's Alliance of Canada.
420radio.org presents the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour with Herb Thrasher and Radical Russ from Portland, Oregon. Herb Thrasher Flower Hour is 2 hours of unrestrained rock, metal, punk, and alt country music, interviews, concert bootlegs, and sports with America's hardest rocking marijuana activist stoner, Herb Thrasher. Live 2 hours Friday, 8 p.m. Pacific, with replays at 8 and 5 on Fridays and replays Saturday at 8 p.m. Pacific on 420radio.org. At Herbie's Cannabis Seeds, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best quality seeds from the world's most respected cannabis seed producers, all at the lowest online prices. You can find Herbie's seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. All cannabis seeds are sold as souvenirs and as a means of preserving cannabis genetics. Herbie's Seeds in no way intends to condone, promote, or incite the use of illegal or controlled substances. We strongly urge all prospective customers to check their national laws prior to placing an order. Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. Proud sponsors of The Russ Belville Show and 420 Radio.
Everyone knows music and marijuana go together, so let's wind up our 20 after break with the Russ Belville Show's Daily Toker Tunes, the best in pod-safe 420 music from around the web. Today is Rockin' Friday, featuring rock, metal, and the hard edge of alternative country. Now, sit back and enjoy your Daily Toker Tune.
All right, welcome back, everybody. It's 23 after the hour, and we got Herb Thrasher on the line, who's just published the latest 420 Radio Herb Thrasher blog on I Hate God. It's up. You got to check it out. I got the link in the chat room. Herb, how you doing?
Oh, man, we're doing great. And, yeah, I had a great time on October 5th, the day before Halloween night. Went and saw I Hate God, and those guys were so cool. Definitely took care of us that night and was able to get some great pictures and put a little review of the show. And there's always more of different shows and stuff, so you guys definitely always try to check out what we've got going up there. But we're doing great. It's just been one of the most amazing weeks. As you guys know, here in Oregon, all of us freedom fighters that have been fighting so hard for Measure 91 finally got to pass that on Tuesday and reap the benefits for about 2 days, and all of a sudden we feel like we're right back smack dab in the middle of it with some certain discussions. But anyway, it's just been great, man, and we fought so hard to pass this thing, and to see the numbers just keep rising and to make it up to 57%, which is 10% in 2 years jump, is just outstanding. And hopefully those of you guys in the other states can grab a little hope from us and maybe come visit us next year after July 1st in 2015. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going on with that, and looking forward to another great episode of Herb Thrasher Flower Hour tonight. Have one of our favorite guests. We got Bobby Black from High Times Magazine. You know, Oregon's legal now, and where is the country going? High Times is definitely a part of the national scene, so we're going to get with Bobby Black and talk with him, get a perspective from the East Coast on what Oregon has done. And it seems to me that Oregon is now a legal state, and the High Times group holds the Cannabis Cup.
Yes.
And that puts if you put one and one together, we're going to ask him when is Portland going to get a damn cannabis cup.
Hell yeah.
All right, so let's get to our tune for today. Got some metal going on. Skin Lab. These guys started in the mid-'90s, somewhere around 94, 95, and they're back on tour right now. And one of our previous guests from Everybody Panic, Provo, is part of that band, and they seem to be, the Facebook page says they're signed to Cavigo Records, and we keep up very well. We haven't seen an official announcement yet, so we're not real sure. But the good news is they are on the road right now. They're in San Diego. They were in Portland on November 1st. Unfortunately, we missed that show. But today's tune is off the Revolting Room album from 2002, and it's called Slaved Away. And it just makes sense because so many of us have just felt like we're slaves to this drug war system, and we slaved away for prominence. So you guys definitely check out this tune. Have a great weekend. Be safe, and definitely keep pushing forward to freedom. See you guys tonight. Special guest Bobby Black of High Times Magazine. Keep rocking.
Everybody got the road up in your front. Everybody got the road up in your front. Everybody put the road hands on the line. Everyone slid the way, paved the way, all the people scream. Everybody make the road up, sit up, run. Everybody make the road up, play us run. Everybody put the road hands on the line. Everybody got the road, we live up, run. Everybody got the road, and did just run. Everyone slid away, and away, slid.
.420 Radio, your ticket to the High Times Cannabis Cups.
You know Herb Thrasher from the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour. Now get ready for Herb Age Designs for the proud cannabis consumer. Herb Age Designs, lifestyle gear for the 420 friendly. Herb Age Designs, we've got Frisbee golf discs and durable hemp gear. Herb Age Designs, we've got shot glasses, drinking glasses, coffee mugs, and beer cozies. Check us out on Facebook and online at herbagedesigns.com. And follow Herb Age and Herb Thrasher on Twitter.
You can find information for all our 420radio.org shows by visiting the control panel at the top of 420radio.org. Click Schedule to find out the latest times for your shows in your time zone. Click Show Guide to learn more about each show. Thanks for supporting 420radio.org. The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, treat law enforcement with respect and stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all of my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak with my attorney." Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215 or on the web at
Goodness, 32 after the hour. That is the inimitable Rob Halford and Judas Priest. Oh yeah, I'm having my midlife crisis teenage metal phase right now, right before your ears. But this is back in my playing days, this is what we used to call 4 on the floor rock and roll. 8th note dominated. Boom chick from the drums, man. And some chunky chords. And from my perspective, anytime a bald guy is rocking, I'm all for that. Oh, let's get back to the news here. Sorry for the abrupt cutoff. It happens on videos. I forgot to slide that one. But anyway, I got to get to talking about New York City. New York City? Yes, New York City. The NYPD's gone nuts. I mean, more so than usual, right? But the NYPD, I think, provides a nice microcosm of police mentality in general, right? NYPD just is the nice big boil of police mentality that's just ripe for lancing. And the NYPD ordered its narcotics units to stop the buy and busts. Buy and bust is when you send a plainclothes out to make a marijuana buy. And then when he buys the marijuana, hey, there's a crime. There's the public view of marijuana. And during the arrest process, they can then frisk him down for weapons and all this stuff, right? It's kind of the step up from stop and frisk. Stop and frisk is just when, hey, I think you're suspicious. I'm going to frisk you down. Ooh, I feel marijuana. Take it out of your pocket. You take it out of your pocket. Aha, that's public view. That's misdemeanor. Now I can take you to jail. Well, this is the next level. They make the buy, which is, actively looking to find these people. And the way it's written up in Russia Today, when the suspect is booked, police have his fingerprints and photo on file, which becomes useful if he's involved in a crime later. Which is what I've always said about this, is that we make a lot about the financial incentive of cops wanting marijuana illegal. And there's certainly a lot to make of that. But I think an even greater reason is because marijuana being contraband is the tool that unlocks the 4th and 5th Amendment. It makes policing easier. It makes it so when a cop has a hunch about those people in that neighborhood, he can act on that hunch by claiming to smell marijuana, something you can't record on your cell phone and bring into court to prove or disprove. And from that point, now we've unlocked this suspect's Fourth Amendment rights to not be searched and harassed, his Fifth Amendment rights not to incriminate himself. Now that's been unlocked. We can go find out if he's got a gun, if he's got more types of drugs on him, and we get to collect the name and the information, right? You know how your local neighborhood grocery store has a buyer card, right? Mine is the Safeway, right? So we go to the Safeway store and you got the little card that's linked to your phone number. And the store gives you all sorts of discounts on stuff so that they got your data. That's how much it is worth to them to know your buying patterns. They'll give you cheaper stuff in exchange for your data. If there's that much incentive for a grocery store to want to collect anonymous data, because I never give them a real phone number. I make up a phone number, and I always give them a fake name. One of my fake names at Albertsons, I believe, is Ivan to fuck you. Ivan to fuck you is my name at the Albertsons buyer card, whatever. And my one at Safeway is Strong. John Strong, Mr. Strong, or something like that. So the cashiers, whenever they check you out, they say, "You saved $5 today, Mr. Strong." It just makes me feel good. Anyway, I digress. If the grocery stores want to pay you just to get your anonymous usage data, what do you think a police department, and even more tellingly, a for-profit prison system, can benefit in collecting the fingerprints and the DNA and the mugshots and the tattoos of potential future clients? So the thing that's freaking cops out is losing that tool. The easy tool of smelling marijuana, the easy tool of bringing in the drug dog, the easy way of harassing young people, because it's going to be young people mostly that got weed on them. The easy tool of seizing their car and any cash they might have on them. I got to have a conversation this weekend with an activist who's out of Missouri, who was talking about how she was a bondsman, a bail bondsman person type, whatever, had to have a license so that when she was hauling large amounts of cash around with her, she could show that to the cops so that they wouldn't try to initiate seizure activities against her, right? It's all about policing for profit, and that's why losing the marijuana angle frightens the hell out of them. It does so much. And the NYPD chief of narcotics told the commanders, we've got a pill and heroin problem in this city. We need to focus on that. The powers that be don't want to see any more of these pot arrests. This is all about arresting minorities, and this is just one way to arrest less minorities. End quote. Fewer minorities, but we understand. The president of the Sergeants Benevolent Association, Ed Mullins, in reply to that, and this is, again, in the reply to, we no longer want you to send undercover officers to make pot buys. That's it. That's what they're saying. We no longer want you to spend the time and the resources to send an undercover to make a pot buy. Now, if you observe a pot buy, bust it. But the whole idea of doing stings on pot is not worth the time, and it's turning out to be racist. The response of the president of the Sergeants Benevolent Association was, quote, "If the current practice of making arrests for both possession and sale of marijuana is in fact abandoned, then this is clearly the beginning of the breakdown of a civilized society." Oh. He continues, quote, "It's counterproductive to the broken windows theory. If we're not making marijuana arrests, then we may not pop someone who has a warrant on them or who committed felony crimes. If the department doesn't want us to make marijuana arrests, they should introduce legislation to change the law." Oh, my stars and garters, Mary. You get done, give me a case of the vapors. Oh, my God. This is an adult. This is an adult with an important position in society. Clearly the beginning of breakdown of civilized society when we've got 51% nationwide support for the legalization of marijuana and clear majority support for people under the age of 65. We've got 4 states now that have legalized not just the possession and cultivation of marijuana, but marijuana markets. the commerce in marijuana, and you're saying that not sending undercovers to bust street-level pot buys is the beginning of the breakdown of a civilized society. Now, Ed Mullins is also referring to the broken windows theory. If you know, this little theory goes back to the Giuliani administration. You know, Rudy Giuliani, that paragon of civil liberties. Goes back to the Giuliani administration and the idea that you have to aggressively police low-level crimes because doing so creates an atmosphere in which higher-level crimes are less likely to happen. The idea is, they call it broken windows, is that if you don't replace the broken windows in a neighborhood, that gives the neighborhood a dangerous quality, and it feels like lawlessness will be tolerated. And soon you get graffiti and you get street deals, and if those are tolerated, and then you'll get rapes and murders. That's the broken windows theory. And Giuliani claimed to have done remarkable work in reducing crime in New York City, which indeed is one of the safer cities in America now. But it didn't have a whole lot to do with broken windows. There's been numerous studies that have debunked the idea of the broken windows theory. I don't want to get too deep into that right now because I don't have the studies right in front of me. But safe to say, Freakonomics authors, and I forget their names off the top of my head, but the guys from the Freakonomics blog crunched some numbers. And they found that while policy had something to do with it, just a little to do with it, I remember it was like 15%. I forget the exact numbers from the episode. The number one causative factor, the number one correlation they could find in the reduction in crime in America had to do with the increased access of abortion after the Roe v. Wade decision. Go Google that. Freakonomics abortion crime. Go check it out. It's amazing and interesting interpretation of data. But they show direct correlations, not just in America, but other countries. They get data from other countries on this. That, like Romania, that had abortion, and then they had Ceausescu, the dictator who outlawed it, and then they got rid of Ceausescu, and they checked the rates before and after and before, and there you go. It directly correlated to how much serious violent crime there was. The theory behind it is, I should say the hypothesis behind it is, that when you have access to abortion, women who are in desperate straits, maybe lacking a partner to help raise a child, maybe lacking financial means to raise a child, maybe have too many children already, taking too much of their attention already, and have even less attention for another child, that when those children are not born because of abortion, then you have fewer criminals in the future, fewer abused and neglected kids that then grow up to become sociopathic criminals. And the data seem to bear that hypothesis out. Now, it's not the kind of hypothesis you can prove. Not like you can take a control group here and this control and abort half of them and, placebo control and all that. It'd be kind of tough to prove, but it's pretty compelling correlation if you ask me. And further interpretation of the data show that the availability of an abortion doesn't really correlate with whether or not those kids get born. They end up getting born later in a mother's life. That is to say, abortion availability and whether or not a woman's had an abortion correlate well, or do not correlate well, with how many children she ends up having throughout her lifetime. They just end up being pushed off, being born later. So, no overall effect to population or families or anything like that, aside from the fact that kids end up being born when the mothers and the families are more ready to raise them to be good, responsible members of society, end up having less crime. Now, I don't want to devolve into an abortion debate because that's one of the radioactive topics on talk radio. I just want to say that trying to bring up broken windows as an excuse as to why we need to keep shaking down Black and Latino kids in New York to get their names and fingerprints and photos in a database to make jobs easier for cops and to unlock the Fourth and Fifth Amendment is balderdash. It's complete poppycock and horse feathers, as my grandpa might have said. All right, stay tuned. We're going to end up the show here in our last segment talking about Florida and Alaska. Some good news from both of those states. Stick around.
And now, a message from former President George W. Bush to remind the American people of our responsibility in our nation's war on certain American citizens using non-pharmaceutical, non-alcoholic, tobacco-free drugs.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
That's right, America, use less drugs. Put down the Prozac, the Vioxx, and the Levitra, and turn to the herb. Use less drugs. Our national policy is no longer just say no, it's now just slow down.
You get me too high. I overanalyze. If you've ever been too high, then you can sympathize. You get me too high. And I start to fly if I said some silly thing, and that's the reason why.
420 Radio, turning red states and blue states green. Growing plants indoors can be a rewarding hobby, but electricity bills can go through the roof. Then you have to cool down all those big hot lights. It can drive a grower insane. With Lush LED lighting, you can solve many of these issues and double your rewards. Matt and his scientists have developed the perfect light for flowering plants with far less cost and heat. And the results? Very effective. Check out LushLEDlighting.com right now and tell them Radical Russ sent you.
Tokers, there's no good reason to get your dog stoned. While it might not harm them physically, imagine being a dog who already begs for treats all day, and then imagine that dog having the munchies. Not cool.
New Approach Oregon is a coalition of Oregon citizens who believe that treating marijuana use as a crime has failed, costing taxpayers millions.
From evolution, we've been killing each other. I think a man should have it down to a science. No chance, not for a minute, not for a second. I won't be defensive, I'm straight out.
All right, that's some music from Pantera, of course. That's some Herb Thrasher Flower Hour music. Hey, make sure you join us tonight on the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour. We got 2 hours of metal, rock, alt country, and me and Herb celebrating our Measure 91 victory tonight. We'll have all sorts of things to say. Herb Thrasher was out at the Measure 91 victory party covering it for us, and so we're going to get his take on the event and everything that happened there, and we'll talk about that tonight at 8 p.m. Pacific time on the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour. We do this every Friday night from 8 to 10 Pacific time, and we follow that up with some Big Daddy Fink's Funky Roller Rink. You got to catch the funk every Friday and Saturday night at 10 o'clock to midnight Pacific time. All right, welcome back, everyone. It's 48 after the hour, and just winding up our coverage of election week. A couple of great stories following the election. Everybody's, kind of sad that we didn't go 4 for 4 in the big ones. We went 3 for 4, right? We got Washington, D.C., Oregon, and Alaska to legalize. We missed out on Florida. But I keep saying, man, we got 58% in a southern state on a midterm medical marijuana election with broad language, a lousy messenger, and the first time millions of dollars had ever been poured into an anti-medical marijuana campaign. 58% is a freaking huge win. I kept telling people the week before the election, go back and check the tapes, man. Tapes. Check the videos. I'm still living in the 20th century. But you can check what I said throughout the shows, that I didn't think it would pass 60, but I just hoped it would get a majority. That was my hope. I was afraid it would drop below 50. So to come out with 58% is a huge win. And as I predicted, it would have political ripples throughout the state. And this is my evidence for this. An editorial that was written November 5th, the day after the election, in the Tampa Bay Times. Now, the Tampa Bay Times was against Amendment 2. They editorialized against it. And Tampa Bay, kind of the northern and Gulf side of the state, if I'm not mistaken, a little more conservative. They write, quote, while a constitutional amendment to legalize medical marijuana in Florida fell just short of the 60% approval needed to pass, more than half of the voters supported it. The legislature should take the hint and craft responsible medical marijuana legislation before its supporters can push the issue back onto the ballot. Writing a narrowly tailored state law that can easily be adjusted would be more responsible than forcing this issue into the Constitution, this complicated issue into the Florida Constitution. They said the legislature should concentrate on the 3 issues that were most problematic with Amendment 2. First, lawmakers should clearly define and list the conditions that can be treated with medical marijuana. There should be no room for doctors' interpretations such as the other conditions language used in Amendment 2. All right. Now, this is where, as a marijuana supporter, you have to, like, and I'm not saying decide what side you're on, but decide how you want to proceed in an election. Okay. There is the honest and compassionate side that says, look, marijuana has less side effects and danger than aspirin. Right? If I go see my doctor, doctor says, yeah, doctor, this hurts. And the doctor says, oh, you got to go get some aspirin. I'd go to a CVS or a Rite Aid and get some aspirin right over the counter, right? There's no logical reason my marijuana should be treated much differently than that. You can make an argument for the psychoactivity of it and that maybe it should be a little tighter controlled, but no more so than, say, pseudoephedrine. You know, maybe I should have to show an ID for it, show that I'm not a kid. But realistically, based on side effects and so forth, marijuana ought to be very, very lax in regulation. Now, that's not realistic politically, because people don't, we got years and years and decades of propaganda and confusion and scare over marijuana. But at the bare minimum, you'd think, hey, the compassionate side, right? Hey, these people are going to see a doctor, and a doctor's going to recommend marijuana for other conditions. The Yes on 2 campaign tried this tack of trust doctors. Let's trust doctors. So yeah, there's this compassionate side, but then there's the pragmatic political side of this, where you got to go, trust doctors, huh? Like the doctors on Venice Beach in California that are in a tent with a big girl with a bikini twirling a sign and pay them $40 and they'll recommend marijuana. So trust doctors, right? Or they can look up into Michigan, where just last week there was a case of a doctor pleading guilty to having recommended medical marijuana for patients he had never even met and getting, paid. Or you could look in just about any state where you can find what trusting doctors has led to. People are not so naive as to not understand that there are levels of doctors, just like there's levels of anything in society. There's your guys that passed at the top of their class and they're working in, hospitals and major, like the Mayo Clinic and stuff, and making 6 figures. And then there's the doctors who didn't finish so high up in the level there. And then there's the doctors who maybe finished on the bottom and had a gig and got fired maybe. And maybe there was some sort of scandal involved and they can't get a gig anywhere else. And so what do? They turn to writing out scripts for medical marijuana, recommendations for medical marijuana at $40 a pop or $50 a pop. Don't tell me they don't exist. I've got direct firsthand knowledge they do. Okay? So people aren't so naive as to think that, hey, there's not pot docs out there who are just going to recommend for anything. And especially in a state like Florida with the pill mill problem. Hell, they got problem with doctors, trusting doctors with goddamn fucking OxyContin. One of the most dangerous drugs out there. So yeah, the Tampa Bay Times here, is it the Times? Yeah, Tampa Bay Times opining that they need a strict condition list, while is kind of medically reprehensible. When you think about it from a medical perspective, like who the fuck are these legislators to limit who should get medical marijuana? They have no medical experience or medical degrees. I understand that feeling. I agree with that feeling on my compassionate side. On my pragmatic legislative political side, I say, hey, look, the only state that has any other condition a doctor will allow is California, and California is used as a cudgel to beat every medical marijuana approach that's tried in any other state. And every other state since California, all 22 of them, have condition lists, which I admit have gotten increasingly more restrictive. And I rail against that But it seems to be a political reality. Now, you want to tilt at the windmill here and, wish and hope that it should be the other way? Or are we going to accede to political reality and get medical marijuana in the South by accepting the fact there's going to have to be a condition list for it to pass? So I agree with the Tampa Bay Times in that respect. The second part that they say, this is Tampa Bay Times writing, the legislature should write strict rules for caregivers and limit the role to people without criminal backgrounds. Now, this, I think, is an overblown fear. The No on 2 side use this in their ads that even drug dealers can become caregivers. Yeah, so like a guy like Bob Jordan. You know Bob and Kathy Jordan up in Parrish, Florida? Kathy Jordan's lived with Lou Gehrig's disease for almost 3 decades now, thanks to her use of cannabis. Well, Bob, her husband, grows her cannabis. And I don't know if he's been busted in the past for it, but I think he has. So we should make Bob ineligible to be Kathy's caregiver because he might have gotten popped growing pot, let's pretend, in the 90s to help his wife live with Lou Gehrig's disease. Does that make any sense to anybody? And there's just no this attitude. It always boils down to, well, Mr. Cancer patient, we'd love to allow you to have medical marijuana, but if we did, why somebody might take advantage of it and sell it to someone who's healthy. So I'm afraid you're just going to have to suffer. I'm afraid you're just going to have to suffer because, I know your suffering is awful, but gosh, if we allowed you to have a caregiver, why somebody might use that status to try to deal dope. Really? That's the level of compassion in this country. The third part that Tampa Bay Times opined on was, lawmakers must address the issue of criminal and civil liability. During the Amendment 2 campaign, there was broad disagreement from both sides about exactly what civil and criminal immunity meant for recommending doctors, patients, caregivers, and dispensaries. Lawmakers should sort it out. But they also point out that 23 states and D.C. have legalized some form of medical marijuana. Most have done so by legislative statute. The paths some of those states followed can serve as roadmaps for Florida lawmakers. Wow, I can't believe somebody actually... What? Look at other states that have invented the wheel 22 times before and maybe crib some of what they've done? Why, that's a breakthrough, Florida. Oh my God, Tampa Bay, of all places, coming up with this. Now, I don't know the details of what they're concerned about the civil and criminal immunity. But like they point out, we've got 23 other states to look at. We should be able to figure this out. They close, Tampa Bay Times closes by saying, though it failed to win the 60% required for approval, Amendment 2 got more votes, more than 3.3 million or 57%, than any of the candidates for governor and cabinet. It is clear that a significant majority of voters want to see marijuana for medical use legalized in the state. Legislators should step up before Amendment 2 supporters try to revive their efforts in 2016. And in that respect, the 2014 medical marijuana election in Florida was like the 2012 recreational legalization election in Oregon. We stepped forth, got on the ballot, but with an extremely flawed messenger and really wide open language that got rejected with 46% of the vote. We did 10 points better 2 years later with better language, better messaging, more monetary support. The same thing will happen for Florida. And like Oregon's Measure 91, we took that to the legislature and said, hey, you can work with us to pass this, or we'll take it to the people and win. Florida can express that same leverage. Work with us, legislature, and get something you kind of like, or we'll pass something in 2016 that we like. Maybe Florida will pay attention to what happened in Oregon. That's all the time we got for today. Thanks for joining us. Coming up next, Herb Thrasher Flower Hour's Halloween special. And later tonight, 8 p.m., we're live. Until next time, take care of each other, Tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you